and I know that I had said last week that maybe we wouldn't have this one, but as we thought about the conversation we had, including this idea that people would like more time to sit with the document, there was quite a lot of feedback that we wanted to integrate. We thought it was important to take some time today to touch base again. So I'm going to turn it over to Isa in a minute to share the agenda. And in the meantime, maybe people could maybe chat in your introductions and hellos in the chat, unless you have never been to a governance meeting before, and then maybe you can come off mute and introduce yourself. I think most of us have been engaged in this committee meeting already, though. So with that, please go ahead and say your hellos in chat. And Isa, you want to share our agenda?
Yes, thanks, Evan. And hi, everybody. Good to see everyone again. Go ahead and pull this up on screen share. So hopefully you can all see that clearly. We have a very straightforward agenda this afternoon, starting off with, as we are doing now, our usual welcome and introductions in the chat. Please continue to do that. And then we'll do a quick kind of context setting and recap around what took place the last couple of backbone support and governance committee meetings that we had last week and the week prior. And then we'll go ahead and dive in and do an overview of the proposed or of the changes that we made, taking into account the feedback and input we got from the last session. So we'll walk through that with the group. And then of course, just create, have quite a bit of time here, create some space for any questions folks might have or additional feedback, and then go into kind of next steps and wrap up remarks.
Excellent. Any questions before we jump in? I see people are chatting in the, or saying hello in the chat. Thanks for that. Well, like I said, we weren't sure we're going to have this meeting because we're so close to the deadline of the CERF application, which is Monday. But we did want to provide this last moment of review and questions and discussion. So just to recap kind of where we've been with this committee meeting, this is our third meeting over a period of, I think, 4 weeks. Or maybe 3 weeks. So we started off with some really general discussion about best practices for governance models, things that other regions are doing, considerations for how we might want to make decisions, and then of course the values we want to bring into the governance structure. In our second meeting, we brought, this was last week, we kind of took that input and we brought to you a draft of our proposed governance structure. We had a really good conversation about it. You all had fantastic input that has made it a lot better and that we have integrated in. But there was also a lot of questions and some loose ends, including feedback that just we need more time to think about this and to be able to offer meaningful feedback. So, so that lands us today. We took the feedback that you gave us last week, we updated it and sent out the amended version to you on Monday so that if you were able to, you had time to review it. But I'm about to share my screen and I have all of the changes that we've made highlighted in red, and we'll just go through those so that you can see them and we have a chance to discuss them. I'll note that almost everything, there's been a few changes since Monday, so there'll be some things that you saw and just a few things that you haven't seen yet. And for those of you who have joined since we kicked off the meeting, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're about to get into looking at the changes to the proposed governance structure, and please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And thanks for being here. So with that, I'll pause to see if anybody has, or I'll pause while I'm sharing my screen, and anybody who has any questions or thoughts, please speak up and I will, I'll put my screen share on. Okay. Can everybody see the Sacramento region proposed governance structure? Thumbs up. Okay. And is it a good like view? Is it big enough, or you can see it pretty well?
Maybe zoom in a little bit, Evan.
That? Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to start to scroll through. Because I'm sharing, I can't see the chat very well. So if there's anything that I need to be aware of, maybe somebody from Valley Vision could help surface that or just jump in. So as we have for every subcommittee, we start with the values, and you all have seen these a few times now. And what we changed here in red, this is in response to this idea of environmental justice is not the same as environmental sustainability. So we added sustainable and just. Environmental justice and sustainability are critical components of our vision for economic growth. So that's the feedback that we incorporated there. And I'm just going to cruise through, and then we can talk about the whole thing as we get to the end. Another thing that we did, really hearing from this committee and thinking it through more, is to make sure that we're really being clear that this is proposed, so that there's flexibility in this as we get into the planning phase and we want to or need to make changes. So this is really the idea that this is what we're starting with, but we're going to have the opportunity to go deeper on it once we get into the planning phase. So we've changed proposed. We've noted that the structure will be fully fleshed out early in the planning phase. And as envisioned now, this is the structure that we're imagining. And then just to review, we start off with the collaborative itself. The collaborative does not have a limit on the number of people who can be engaged. It's meant to be representative of a wide variety of different types of groups, and you can see those kind of laid out here. So focusing on some priority disinvested communities, and also bringing in businesses, employers, associations, education, philanthropy, and kind of other institutional partners. We note here that we want to make sure we're aligning with other big regional initiatives. 2 of those have been called out in the CERF application itself, which are the K through 16 Educational Collaborative and the Regional Climate Collaborative. So noting that those are important areas of alignment. So as part of the collaboration, we note that members may but are not obligated to take on additional roles, including committee or leadership council, and that there's opportunities for stipends for participation as well as funded partnerships. So next we get into the committees. What's changed here is we've added proposed again, and then we've made our timing a little bit more flexible. I think we had this wrapping up by Q2 before, but we're trying to just make sure that we're giving enough time and we're not constraining ourselves. So our proposed committees in this first stage are remaining the same: data research and evaluation, capacity building and technical assistance, and community engagement. So that's the same as what you saw before. The addition that we have here, and this is new this week, so this wasn't in what you saw on Monday, but really listening to feedback from Nevada County and thinking about the Sierra Foothills as its own sub-region. So that's been an addition where we want to make sure that we're recognizing that, you know, Nevada County isn't represented well in either the Tahoe region or the Sacramento region, or so we need to call that out more clearly. So that's what we've done here. So we've listed it, and then we've also listed feedback that we got from you all last week is that these subregions aren't hard and fast. There's got to be flexibility as we start to build strategies. You know, sometimes 2 counties might be aligned together, and sometimes that might shift someplace else. So we want to make sure that we're flexible about that. Next, we're going into this idea of stage 2, where we switch from these kind of functional based committees to more strategy based committees. So again, we've made our timeline a little bit more flexible, and you can see those changes reflected here. And everything else about this is the same. So just noting that we're gonna kind of switch to more strategy based as we get into as we get later in the planning phase. And then we go to the Leadership Council. This is the kind of the decision-making body that is representative of both the collaborative and the committees. A major point of feedback that we got from you all last week was that we needed to weight disinvested communities participation more than representatives from in these other categories. And so we changed our numbers to reflect what was discussed here in this meeting. So ensuring that we're up to 15 representatives from priority disinvested communities with fewer possible slots for representatives from different subregions and our committees. And important to note that representatives from subcommittees or from subregions or committees could also be members of disinvested communities. It's not limited, but there needs to be at least that 12 to 15 that are directly from those priority disinvested communities. We changed the timing. So we said I think we had monthly before. We felt like that was too much. So at least every 2 months, routinely using a virtual format, but meeting at least annually in person, with the venue rotating among different subregions. And then also noting there'll be opportunity to reassess this whole structure periodically throughout the planning phase. And then when we get to the visuals, the change that we made here was to add Sierra foothills. So we had 4 circles before, now we have 5 in both of these categories. So this is just the schematic that shows our core subcommittees, who's feeding into those subcommittees. So priority disinvested communities, as well as our subregions. And then the collaborative members that represent all these really diverse stakeholders from throughout the region. And stage 2 is similar, but has, instead of these functional based subcommittees, it has these either sector based or strategy based subcommittees based on priorities, but with the same subregions and priority disinvested communities feeding into it. So that's what's been changed and updated, and I'll take it off share in a minute so we can all see each other, but I will pause to see if anybody wants to look at anything more closely or have any questions while the share is still up. Okay, so looking at this, does this reflect for you some of the thoughts you had last week? And as I went through it, are there any additional thoughts that you have now that you'd like to share?
Hey, Evan, Brenda from Food Policy Council. Was there going to be, thank you so much for all of being so responsive to all the staff and taking all the input. Did I miss it, or is there going to be into this some reference to participatory budgeting, or is that in one of the 3 other sub working group discussions?
That is a good question, Brenda, and it does show up in the engagement and outreach section, but you're right, it's not reflected here, so we'll take that note.
Yeah, it could be something as simple as the governance working group shall take under advisement the community engagement recommendations for participatory budgeting. But I think the 2 things need to talk to each other.
Okay, thanks, Brenda. Any other thoughts or questions on this document?
I just want to say that from the foothills standpoint, I like that that got included as a sub-region, and also thanks for including the ability to reposition things as we move along, so that it would not be cast in stone and impervious to new information. So thank you for adding that.
Great, thank you, Gil. All right, well, I always hate to belabor long silences, but I also acknowledge that it takes time for, especially in the virtual format, to think through if there's any feedback or comments that you have. So Brenda, yes, we will send out this version, and we can do that. We can do that pretty immediately. And you know, I'll also say that once we do send it out, if you want to look at it on your own, any feedback that you want to share probably before end of day Friday, which is tomorrow, will certainly be accepted from us. And you know, I'll note this is really the bulk of our meeting today. This might be a really short meeting. We just wanted to provide an opportunity to go through the changes, to hear if there's any additional thoughts or questions that you have as we're getting these documents wrapped up and turned in. So So if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to ask them now, or we're available by email or by other ways as well. And I'm seeing some chats come in. Appreciate that. Okay, then I have another question for you all. As you know, we have been putting out requests for the collective partnership agreement letter. So a somewhat abbreviated version of this governance structure, along with the overarching goals and vision, are posted on our website for people to review. And then we've sent out just a Word document attachment that has the template for what that letter needs to be. We'd be happy to share that here or answer any questions that any of you have about that, about how to do it, what it means. But we would love for you all to be able to, if you feel good about this process and about what you're seeing, that you would be able to send in a support letter. And again, thanks to those of you who already have. But does anyone have any questions about that?
Evan, I have a question. Our CEO's out of town, but we are working to get that signed by another one of our executives. So does it matter? I know that believe there was like an online portal where you could submit, or I think it said you could also email it to any of the team at Valley Vision. That either way works. Yep,
either way works and is equal in our eyes. So we'll receive it. Appreciate that. I also really appreciate people being so responsive in a short timeline, kind of balancing in our I think it was an 8-week period to do the input and then to turn it around with the letter and support has been quicker than what would be ideal, but we really appreciate everybody being responsive. Okay, well, what I will say is in terms of next steps, we're working on solidifying all these materials and getting them submitted to the state by Monday, which is the due date. We will send out the full narrative that's going in next week so that everybody can see it. I will tell you that the input that we've gotten from committees and it's really provided. And what you've already seen here with the kind of the vision, goals, values, and the detail of the governance structure, I think it's really providing a solid foundation with lots of room for us to continue to iterate and grow this together, which to me is the intent of what we're going to be submitting. So not so much detail that we're locked into anything, but enough of a supportive base of people and enough input so that we have something to grow from. So really excited about that. From what I understand, the state is going to be coming back with their decisions in August. And Isa or Alana, you might have more details on that. And then they want to start contracts by October. So we're anticipating an October launch where we're, really pulling a whole collaborative together and starting to think this through together in terms of how we're going to build it and what's the nuance still to come. So really excited about doing that work. Did I get those dates right?
That's right.
Okay. So that's the whole big picture and some of the next steps. And I'll open the floor just one more time, see if anybody has any questions or comments. And then I think that's all we have.
Evan, can you just go over that timeline once more? I didn't capture that all.
Yeah, so the whole package is due to the state on Monday. And then they're going to be coming back with their decisions out to regions sometime in August. Is there anything more detailed than that, or is it just general? Mid-August, something like that?
It is, award announcements are in September. So correction, yeah.
Sorry, yes, in September. Our announcements, and then they want to get into contract, I think by October 1st. I'm right about that though, aren't I?
Yes, and I do think that September, I think, is sort of a final announcement date. It is possible that I think in August we, if there are certain applications from the different regions, there may already be some back and forth even as early as August, kind of depending.
as soon as we know anything, we will be communicating out. I think I've said this before, I don't anticipate another application coming in from our region. That is not the case across the state. We've had a number of cross-regional calls where there's a pretty competitive environment in other places. So, so I hope that, you know, I hope that our package will be easily accepted, fingers crossed, and we'll get down to this work. Okay, any last questions before we wrap up?
No, not a question, just a comment that y'all did a fabulous job on this and really appreciate y'all spearheading this work. Thank you. Thank you to and shout out to the Valley Vision team, Issa and Alana. Got a couple new folks who really put in that work.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you. Honestly, I know that the time that you have spent on this is not small. This is a lot of work for you to put in as partners. And I know you all have many important things on your plate. So I just appreciate it so much, and I'm really excited to do this work all together. All right. Well, have a great afternoon then. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.